All right, hi guys. I am Mary Poplin, and we're going to go over some awesome new stuff in Mocha 2020. If y'all are ready to go, the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to be showing most of this in After Effects. I am going to show you some stuff in Nuke, but it's going to be mostly like a extension of how you do something in After Effects and how you do something in Nuke side by side. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to launch Mocha Pro. Now Mocha Pro, you guys know, is a plugin and a standalone. For this, I'm going to be showing you the plugin, and we're going to be inside of After Effects. So I'm going to double click here. We're going to click on my shot, and I'm going to go to Effects Controls. Inside of Effects Controls, you can see we have our Mocha Pro panel, and I'm going to launch Mocha Pro from this panel, and that will read directly from our timeline. As long as we're on full res, it will read pixel per pixel. Now, you guys know that in Mocha Pro 2019, we introduced new tools, which was the magnetic spline tool, right? So that you can make magnetic splines really, really quickly. And then you can click and draw for freehand, and that makes a nice quick shape without having to do a lot of fiddly roto work. What I want to tell you is that we have a new tool, which is called the area brush tool. And what's nice about it is it's a pressure sensitive painting tool that you can actually use to create a spline out of a drawing. Now, why is that useful and why do you care? So let's say I want to track this guy's glasses really quick. Let's zoom in a little bit. Normally what I would have to do is have to come in here, start drawing shapes right around his glasses, and then I would have to go to my Add to X-Spline tool, and I would have to cut out the middle of his glasses because we can't track that reflection and his glasses at the same time. And then I'd have to use the Add to X-Spline tool again and come in here and cut out this other edge. In order to get a mask, we'd have to adjust this, like I'd have to make it all soft, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and now we have our mat to track his glasses. Well, that's kind of a pain. So now with this new area brush tool, we can actually come in here and I can just draw a nice shape around his glasses. And that's let's turn my mats off here. And so that's going to be our nice little glasses shape really, really quickly. And of course, we can adjust the size of our shape because that was a little big. I can use the open and close brackets to change my size so that we can get a more accurate shape, just like this. And I can even, if I'm using a Wacom tablet, I can even erase if I want to, if I don't convert my mask right away. So that is the area brush tool. And we have a couple of good applications for this. Color correction is a good one. Basic tracking is another one. If you guys are using the essentials mode, for those of you that are motion graphics or editors, people that are not really excited about doing nitty-gritty compositing shapes, this is just the very simple interface is all you need in order to start really doing some really complex tracking in Roto. Let's go ahead and close this, and we're going to talk a little bit about some practical applications here. So if I want to track this screen, again, traditionally, I would have to come in and I would have to start making some drawings inside of Mocha with my spline tools, but I actually don't want to do that. For this, what we're going to do, we're going to take our little tracking tool, our area brush tool here, and we're going to make our brush bigger, and then we're going to just paint just like this around this edge here. Now, if I go too far in, I can actually fix that. So, I don't have to worry too much about getting really accurate shapes here because I can always come in with my eraser or the Alt tool on Windows or Option on Mac, and I can erase the areas that I don't want to focus on. So now when I want to track this object, I'm just going to go ahead and hit Quick Mask, turn that into a mask, and we can actually turn our surface tool on, just like this. And with our surface tool, we can take our surface tool and align it to our screen, and I can actually start tracking really, really quickly without a whole lot of work. So now we'll just start tracking forward. And we're avoiding this head that's in front of our screen and getting a nice planar track that we can start to put any sort of detail on. So for instance, I can jump over to classic mode here for a second. Let's just put our logo right on the screen so you can see there's our track right on our screen without having to do a whole lot of work. So we're going to close this. And then I want to talk a little bit about tracking more complex objects. You know, when you tend to want to track objects like this, again, this is for like a 3D solve, really. We would use this for a 3D solver, but this shot, if we want to track this background, we'd have to come into Mocha. And what I'd probably use is I'd probably use a bunch of shapes and then link them all together on the same layer using the Add to Spline tool. But again, that's kind of tedious. I just want to show you in a couple of seconds, track, 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 quick mask, and we're going to get tracking. And very, very, very quickly, we've got a whole layer to track using just a very small amount of detail. And that will give us our track for our whole background, because again, Mocha is a planar tracker, and as you guys know, that means that we track pixels that are relative to one another. In this case, we want to track pixels that are on the same plane. This is a really quick tool for defining all of the pixels that are on that very same plane. And let's just turn our surface tool on when we're done tracking, and I'll show you what that looks like. Let's just turn our surface tool on and our grid tool, and you can see really, really quickly, we've got this, excuse me, you can see really quickly, we've got this nice track on our background. All right, so we're going to save that and close it. And let's talk about one more thing with our area brush tools. So the area brush is meant to be a graphic interface that allows you to quickly track stuff. And it doesn't just actually apply to only the Mocha tools. It's actually going to be in the Continuum tools as well, coming up, and in a little bit of the Sapphire tools as well, I believe. So we're going to go ahead and double click on this, and I'm going to show you how we can use our new upcoming, this is the preview, so this is not a final piece of software yet, but we're going to use BCC's witness protection to blur out this lady's face using this really simple tool, just like this. And let's show you how that works. So the way this works is, let's just go into our Mocha mask track and click Launch Mocha, obviously after applying our Continuum filter. And we can go ahead and let's go to the end of, well, let's go to here in our shot. Let's delete this and let's make a new shape. We're going to take our area brush tool, and again, I'm going to just make this a bigger shape because I want a nice smooth shape. Draw a shape right around her face. We're going to hit quick mask. I'm going to track translation, scale, and rotation only, and we're going to track this off screen, just like this. So there's her face off screen, and then again, we're going to come back here and track backwards. And because we're using translation, scale, and rotation only, we get this nice consistent shape that doesn't shift or make any transformations that are a little bit weird, like shifting sideways. It's really important when you're doing stuff like this, where you're trying to follow like a really simple shape, that you don't, give Mocha too much work to try to figure out the shear and perspective, because it doesn't need it. So now we're going to go ahead and save and close. And then back in my host, you can see my witness protection is applied right to her face. And if I wanted to, I could even track his shoulder using the magnetic spline tool, or again, the area brush tool to roto this back out over the top. There's a lot of stuff you can do with these tools. So again, your application for this is going to be quick and easy screen tracks, color corrections, witness protection, that sort of thing. Are there any questions about the area brush before I move on to mega plates?
Yeah, hey Mary, how's it going? Hey everyone,
Pretty good.
this is Ross. Just thought I'd jump in here. Just kind of, why don't we launch Mocha and we can talk a little bit more about the area brush.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've shown some really cool examples, and just to reiterate, one of the reasons we created this area brush tool was just so Mocha users can get in there and start basically drawing shapes, creating layers very, very quickly. Over the years, I think a lot of people know how powerful the Mocha's spline-based tracking is. But I think a lot of editors or colorists, they kind of might not like to work with splines. So, you just want to create some garbage mats, just kind of touch the area brush and make a really big brush. And yeah, it's very, very interactive. Mary, I don't know if you mentioned this, if I missed it or not, but just to double, mention that you can you can, if you have quick mask on, you could add as many different raster strokes before you create splines. So right now Mary's painting with quick mask turned off, and you'll see that every time that she kind of clicks off, it's creating a new Mocha track layer. With quick mask on, yeah, she can basically paint all she, as much as she likes. In fact, she could even erase. Yeah, so what's the shortcut on Windows? I think
It's
it's
Alt for
Alt.
Windows and Option for Mac, and I did mention that, but
Cool.
I
Yeah,
might
so
have
you can,
gone too fast.
yeah, no, that's great. So you really can create this masking, tracking layers very interactively, and it's great for, scenarios where Mary just showed the actor on the green screen, where she wanted to create a bunch of tracking layers on tracking search areas on one spline. Mary, if you could just go back to the magnetic tool for a second, I just want to answer one person's question. You can do
Yeah,
it on this chat.
absolutely. Let's just do it here.
Yeah,
Magnetic tool.
yeah. So if you draw a magnetic shape, and just let's reiterate, if you want, to go when you click down and drag, that's freehand, right?
Exactly. And then while you're not doing that, what happens is Mocha will actually go ahead and trace that edge. But if you click down when you're using magnetic tool, so like right here, I'm not going to be able to get a good magnetic shape. So I just click and draw just like that. And then we reconnect and we end
Right.
up with this lovely shape.
And let's just point out one thing with the shape selected. If you go to your layer properties, that the detail parameter is now found under your layer properties. It's not up on the toolbar. That's
Right.
new in this version. So yeah, that detail right down there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we can take this right down.
Yeah.
And it should convert the detail down. So, or it would have if I hadn't already
Yeah.
altered the shape.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
But
but yes,
yes, someone was asking about the detail parameters, and I just want to mention that that's where you find it. The detail parameters, unfortunately, does not work with the area brush yet. So that is definitely a feature request. Some people have seen the area brush, they love it, but they see there's a lot of points, and that's currently what we're living with.
oops. Yeah, that's a thing. Well, so we wanted to get this tool out, right? So there's some compromises that we made. Obviously, we want to see a lot more, features in it, but this is step one, right? This is our cool step one. We're excited about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's come a long way already. And let's just really quickly, before we move on to mega plates, talk about the edge snapping.
Oh, right. I actually totally forgot to mention that. That is okay. Yeah, duh. So that's really cool. I'm really actually excited about that feature. So if we want to, for instance, track this hat, I'm going to actually just really quickly, because this hat doesn't have a whole lot of detail, I'm going to take this hat and I'm going to pull it out a little bit so that we get some of those edges when we're trying to track. So we're just going to track some of these edges really quick. And when I track forward, excuse me, when I track forward, you're going to see that we're going to follow that shape. But because Mocha is a planar tracker, it's going to just track the basic planar motion of that shape, which is great, except for I don't want to just have the planar motion. I want it to stick to the edges, and you can see that it really doesn't across the board. So that's okay. What we can do is we can actually come in here. We have this new tool for Roto, and I'm actually going to use this the point selection tool right here. We're going to use the Marquee Selection, and I'm going to draw around my shapes here, my points here, and I'm going to just hit S, just like this. Excuse me. S. And what it should do is it should snap to the edge. Well, there we go. Alt S. And what it'll do is it'll look for the closest edge it can find, just like this, Alt S. And we're going to snap to these edges, just like this, Alt S. And you see, it actually does this for me so that I don't have to do these hand corrections. And so the cool thing about that is now I can tween between those two shapes that I made. We can look for any problems. So like this area here, let me actually switch to my Lasso selection tool, which I don't know if you know about, but you can use a Lasso selection to select your points, hit Alt S again. We're going to snap right to those edges. So the cool
That
thing about that
that Lasso feature
is
is a really fun feature for Roto too. I don't know, maybe just show that one more time where you can find it. That's cool.
Yeah, one more time. So it's right here. It's under your selection tool, Lasso Selection, and you just click and draw, just like this. And you can corners of a shirt. You're going to have a lot more keyframes than you are if you're doing a hat. Like, okay, duh. But it's still an extremely useful tool. I ended up doing this soccer roto that I showed in a previous webinar, and I think I did the whole thing in 5 hours, and it was several hundred frames long. So that's a really quick roto time for those of you that are not roto experts. It was articulated roto with motion blur in 5 hours. That's very fast. So all right, do we have anything else I need to address really quick, Ross?
No, I think that was really great. It's also really good to kind of remind people what we actually shipped in our last point release. So, for example, the edge snapping came out in Mocha Pro 2019.5, and that's really something that we've been doing a lot differently, and really committing to beyond the annual releases, having multiple releases a year, and that's a great reason to get on the subscription option, because we'll constantly adding new features all the time these days.
Yep, I'm so happy with the magnetic tool and the edge snapping. Like, it's a game changer for me for on the work that I'm doing. And as far as the area brush goes, I've already used it a bunch for really simple tracks without having to go in and start messing with X splines. X splines are great; they're fast. I really like them, but it's nice to have an even faster tool for really simple tracks.
Cool. All right, I'll let you take it from there. Thanks, Mary.
Okay, yeah, of course. Thanks for chiming in. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about a little bit is our mega plates. Okay, so what are mega plates? So a lot of times when we're doing work, especially if you're a paint artist or if you're a compositor, or even if you're an editor, because editors are getting asked to do a lot more than they used to get asked to do, especially for things like previs or figuring stuff out with the director. One of the things that you will run into a lot are these like large panning shots, and if you have to do any sort of paint on them, or if you have to do any sort of compositing on them, you've got this vast area to cover, but you don't have a really good way to visualize what that's doing. So what we can do is we can actually make this thing called a mega plate, where it takes all of our planar data and then it builds that into a single plate that you can then start to manipulate. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. So I'm going to go over here to my Mocha interface and I'm going to launch Mocha. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how we did this really quick. I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to show you the finished version, because I don't think we want to sit through the whole track. But first thing we do is we draw a shape around our guy, and this is because I don't want to track him when I track the background, and I'm just going to really quickly roto him out of the shot, and I think that'll probably almost do it. Now I can have Mocha track this, but it's honestly, it's just not worth it for this kind of garbage mask, just because it's so much faster to just do it that way. Okay, so now he's out of the shot. I don't have to worry about him. It's guy holdout is what we'll call that. And just like anything in Mocha, obviously, for those of you that are new to Mocha, you won't know this, but for those of you that aren't, when we track, if we're going to track this background here, for example, we track in layer order. So this is going to be our beach track, okay? And here's the thing about that. If I try to track the beach track above our guy, we're going to track our guy and our beach at the same time. If I move the beach track under my guy holdout, just like this, when I start to track my beach, and let me just go ahead and take my surface tool and align it down here so that we can see what we're doing. Here's my surface tool. Okay, if I start tracking my beach now, it's going to hold the guy out for my track, so you can see he's not contaminating my track when we track. That's really important, okay? If we don't do that, we can end up with a bad track, and you don't want to have foreground objects contaminating your background track. Another cool thing about this is we'll actually be able to remove this guy based on his movement and the track and the plate that we're going to build. So I'm not going to make you sit through that whole track. We're going to delete these two layers really quick. So here's my guy holdout, just like that. And here's my already, here's my already baked track of the background, and you can see that it is rock solid and nice. One thing I want you to notice about this, just as a really quick aside, this surface tool, you can see that my surface tool is not going way outside of the screen plane. That's because if you've ever seen your shape like sort of close in on itself, if this surface tool goes too far out, the math in Mocha doesn't like it. So I like to make sure I keep my surface tool visible on the screen so that I don't get any math problems when I'm doing my shots. Now, the other thing I want you to notice here is what we've done is we've taken the Uber key, just like this, and we've made sure that our shape is always covering the area that we want to build our plate from. So I want to build this whole beach out. So now I'm going to, let's just scroll over here. I'm going to make sure that my beach is always covered by my shape, just like that. And that's going to inform how I build my shape out, because it uses remove technology to stitch all of your pieces of your shot together. Now, in the past, I'm a matte painter, actually. Well, I'm a paint artist, matte painter, compositor, etc. But in some of the jobs I used to do a lot of matte paintings. I worked on Kite Runner. We had to do a lot of conversions for the mountains around Kabul, Afghanistan, and they had to be wintertime. They shot it during the summer. So we had to do a lot of conversion paintings, and I would have to build these plates out by hand. Now we don't have to do that. I'm going to go over to my Mega plates, and you're going to be pretty disgusted at how easy this is. We're going to go ahead and just click right here, and I'm going to ask Mocha to, actually I'm going to go jump over here. We're going to ask Mocha to build this out. So let's go ahead and hit render on my Mega plates. I can hit auto step so that it builds it a little bit faster. That means it looks every certain number of frames that it decides are the best frames. We're going to go ahead and hit render. And up here in the top corner, we're going to process our Mega plate. And that's Mocha actually looking at our track, looking at all of our frames, and then using the same technology we use for the remove tool, it's going to overlay those frames pixel by pixel over the top of one another, blend between all of them, and give us a single continuous plate that we can then paint inside of Photoshop or wherever we want. In this case, I could use it to get rid of these tire tracks right here on our beach. And let's talk a little bit about that. Oh, let's go over here. So here's my built out plate, and you can see there's all of the beach that we're going to see based on our movement of our plane. So you can see here's our original plate, just like this, and then here's all our build out of our clean plate all over here.
Hey Mary, did you mention the auto scale down there, just to mention the size that you're getting out?
No, but go ahead.
Oh yeah, so if you wanted to set this, basically what Mega Plate is doing here is it's basically creating this stitched file based on the tracking and all the temporal frames, very similar to the remove module if you guys have been with us for a long time. But if you wanted to basically tell the software what size plate it's going to get out, you can basically set a value here, or auto scale will just basically uses all the pixels it can and create, auto size based on the tracking data.
It's true, but I think we don't recommend going over 16,000 pixels, right?
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm just saying that just because I have seen people do some crazy size stuff. So we don't recommend you go over 16,000 pixels, FYI. So now I can do stuff like save this and start to use it. So I can hit create clean plate. And what this will do is this will save it wherever I want. In this case, I'm going to save it very sloppily on my desktop, because that's a proper workflow. It's not. Please don't ever do that. And what we can do is we can now open Photoshop, and we can actually load this into Photoshop and paint it. So if I wanted to get rid of these tire tracks, I could, and then use them in a remove. And I'm just going to show you that really quick, and we can show you how to put it back into the shot. I don't want to take too much time on the shot because we've got some more complex concepts to show you, but it's good to start with the basics and go from there. So let's show you desktop, and let's find our where is our plate that we saved? I thought I saved it to the desktop. Well, I tell you what, rather than worry about it, we're going to go into Mega Clean Plates. We're going to go into our Mega Clean Plate plates, and we're going to go ahead and open up our beach just like this. Here we are. And you can start to add stuff to it if you like, or you can start to take stuff away. In this case, we went ahead and painted out these tire tracks over here. So if we want to use this, we can use this in a remove. So for example, let's actually just see. Let's see if we can do this from total scratch, and I'm just going to save this new plate. Let's try that one more time. Where are you located? You're on the desktop. So why is it not? Why am I not finding it on the desktop? Let's go to Mega. There it is. Duh. Okay, perfect. So now we're going to go ahead and paint out these road. Can you see these tire tracks throughout my shot? We don't want those in our shot. They're actually pretty bad for making this beach feel very desolate. So we're going to come in here. We're going to take our heel brush. You actually have to be in the proper workspace to have the heel brush. So if you don't see it, it's because you're not in the proper workspace. Let's go ahead and use our lock button to just lock the pixels here so that we don't get a odd transparency when we're painting. And we're going to quickly paint this out. Now, you don't have to paint this out inside of Photoshop because this uses a big mega plate. I'll actually show you. You can actually paint this in Nuke or After Effects or whatever your host is, and that can get really interesting because whatever you change, you can then load back into your composite. But for the purposes of this really quick demo, I'm going to paint it in Photoshop just because of the speed of Photoshop versus painting inside of a host package where you pretty much only have the clone tool. I mean, in the clone tool, while lovely, doesn't do as much of the legwork as I like inside of the heel brush, because the heel brush actually matches hue, saturation, and value, actually really similarly to the way that we match hue, saturation, and value when we were using the remove tool, and we use illumination modeling, which you can also use inside of our mega plates coming soon as well. So, okay, so here we go. We have this nice, our tire tracks are gone. We can save this, okay? And what we can do is we can use this as our clean plate inside of Mocha. So if I want to do a remove now, I can actually take my remove, and I've made a new shape. I'll just show you really quickly. We have a remove shape right here. I want to remove these tire tracks. So here's my remove shape. Here's my background. Just like any remove, you still need to use your original track, and you need to have a foreground area to remove. Okay, so let's just take this surface tool and make it look, interesting. So we're going to take this shape and we're going to tell it to replace everything within the shape based on our background motion, just like this. So let's just adjust this and let's see what that looks like. Okay, that's always covered. So now we're going to ask Mocha to remove those tire tracks based on this shape. And let me just, again, make sure that shape is right. Okay, it is. All right, so I'm going to actually import my clean plate really quickly, and I'm going to show you, because it's a new clean plate that we've painted. I'm going to go to Mega Clean Plate, input 123. That means it's from frame 123. And we're going to say, hey, this is 123. Okay, and your project is 1920 by 1080, but the imported plate is way bigger. Would you like to create a Mega Clean Plate clip instead? And we always hit yes. Okay, and then we're going to use our clean plates exclusively. Now, instead of having to paint multiple clean plates for this beach to get rid of all these tire tracks, like I would have to do if I was using the regular remove tool, we can just go ahead and use this one Mega Clean Plate just like this across the board. And I'm not going to render the whole thing for you, but we're going to save this and close it. And then we can actually, as we're used to doing inside of our regular remove, we can come in here to our module renders, and we can go ahead and say, hey, I would like you to go to render our remove right here. And there go all our tire tracks right there removed from our shot. So here's your before and after. And it will populate through our shot just like this. Pretty handy. It's a pretty good way to do removes. Do we have any questions about that concept before I move on to more complex clean plates and more complex mega plates? Okay, I guess not. So Good. We're going to jump over to the Mocha Pro module, and I'm actually not going to retract these for you. I'm going to show you what we've done here. Sometimes when you're dealing with mega plates or any sort of set extension, you don't always have a nice pan of a flat plane that moves in one direction that you can make a nice plate for. Sometimes you've got parallax. So in this shot, what we've got is we've actually got quite a bit of parallax, and that's not great for what I need. I want to remove the sky from this shot, but I've got these back hills that are moving different than these front hills. It's moving different from the ocean in the background itself. So if I want to build out a plate for this, I actually need to build out a plate using all of these layers. And that's going to end up looking a little bit not like a flat, nice image. It's going to actually have to build out over here and build out over here. So let's talk about that a little bit. So what we can do is we can go to our mega plates here, and I can click on my mega plates and I can say, hey, build this out based on the movement of this shot. And so I've got notice that I have a nice roto along the edge of this front hill, nice roto along the edge of this back hill, and just a big square for the background. Every single one of these layers has to be tracked in order to build a clean plate from, because Mocha, again, is a planar tracker. Every module inside of Mocha is built off the planar tracker. And so in order to get good results, we have to have a good track. So garbage in, garbage out, excellence in, excellence out. So we've made sure our tracks are really good for all of these objects. And now we're going to build our clean plate out just like this. So let's go ahead to our mega plates. Let's use auto step and let's tell it to build our clean plate out. And again, notice that our shape is oversized so that we can actually fit all of the hill inside of that. I do want to tell you one cool thing that I did to get this to work. Again, I used Uber Key, and I always looked to cover the entire hill area with that Uber Key. So you want to make sure that when you are building your plates out, that you make sure you give this shape enough room to build out. So just like this, now you can see that that will cover that entire area really well. That's really important. You can either unlink from the track and make a gigantic shape, okay, that covers everything, or you can use the Uber key to make sure you cover the whole area you want to build your plate out into. I hope that makes sense, but we have to tell Mocha where to put those pixels back in, and we're telling it with shapes, okay? So now we're going to hit our mid-ground rock here, and we're going to hit create clean plate. What this will do is this will start to build out. Now this is going to take us a few seconds longer than we took for our original build out, and that's because we're building 3 different planes. And the cool thing about this is because it uses remove technology, we can actually, once we're done building our plate, we can say, hey, I noticed that I have these foreground objects in my plate. That's not going to work for me. I need to actually be able to paint this plate without having my foreground objects in it. So what can I do? When we're done building this, we can actually select our foreground character that we've done a really quick garbage mat on, and we can remove the talent from the shot with the click of a button once our clean plate is built. So there's our clean plate. Okay, now I'm going to click on our guy, and I'm going to hit remove foreground. Notice the gear is on our foreground object we want to remove. I say remove foreground, and Mocha will think about it, and then it's going to just take the sky right out of here. And it rebuilds pixel by pixel. So again, it does analyze for the whole frames, and it needs to rebuild that. So it takes a second or two, and then it will take him right out of the shot, in theory, unless Mocha decides to embarrass me in front of company. Looks like it's going to behave. There we go. So here's our guy, totally taken out of our shot, just like this. So that is really, really handy when you're trying to build matte paintings because you don't have to worry about what's passing in front of your background. You can just go ahead and paint. So now let's save this. And what we can do is we can create this clean plate and save it wherever we like. And we can start to paint on this and make any sorts of changes. So why do you care about that? Like, what is the big deal there? Well, the reason you care about that is because you can start to do some really cool stuff with this. So for instance, I'm going to show you this matte painting that I made really quick. So Ross sent me this lovely pan shot, and you can see that this was shot and it was really overexposed, and that's kind of a problem when you're trying to do this epic sweeping vista. There's no epic sweeping vista to look at. It's all washed out, and there's no clouds in the sky. You can't see the sun because it's been completely taken away. So what happens when I want to enhance this shot, or when the director says like, this is just not feeling big enough? And I want you to know that like every Western you guys ever see, where it looks like, you know, they just shot it on the perfect day, they didn't shoot that on the perfect day. That's a lot of that is compositing and matte paintings. Same thing for just about every movie you guys see. And, you know, if you guys work in film, and many of you do, you know that everything you see is essentially a beautiful lie. This makes that the creation of that beautiful lie a little bit easier for you. So we're going to turn this shot into this. We're going to add detail into our foreground. We're going to add a sun up into the sky using the sapphire lens flare. Auto tracker, we're going to add some Hollywood Hills signs back in here, even though, you know, you would, unless you were like shooting from Catalina Island and had like a telephoto lens, you'd never get this sort of view because this could be the ocean, but it's a river. We're going to fake it like LA, the valley's been flooded, and this is like Malibu to Hollywood. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this new beautiful shot just like this with our matte painting, and we can create that using the Mega clean plates. And let's talk a little bit about how we did that. I'm not going to show you the paint of this, like we're not going to sit through painting a matte painting. That's going to take more time than we have. But suffice to say, for those of you that know how to do matte paintings, you know, we do a lot of compositing and blending and painting and cloning and heal tools, etc., to make this beautiful. And then we add some clouds in from, you know, photos that we've totally cannibalized. So now let's talk about how we actually do this shot. I'm going to bring this up a little bit so that we can see all our layers. Just like this. Okay, so this is going to be one of those I've baked the cake for you situations. I'm not going to sit through tracking this whole shot, but I am going to show you how we did this. So first things first, what do? We got to get rid of this foreground mountain range. Now I am going to show you how to make this shape. And the reason I'm going to show you how to make this shape is because this is a little tricky and it's a cool technique. So we're going to come over here and we're going to just draw freehand a little goofy garbage mat right around our object. Okay, great, cool. Okay, but the problem with this is we, once we start to move, you know, we're going to have a problem staying in the right location as the scenery changes. So what I actually do is I use that Uber key again to make sure that I have adjusted my shape between those 2 points. So what we can do is we can start to, like, you know, shift the shape, and then we can, you know, move these points over, because this mountain has a lot of parallax on it. So, you know, the parallax of things has changed. So we're just going to select all this and sort of move these over just like this. And then we're going to use our Uber key to pull these points out. Okay, so now what we can do is we can track this, and we can actually adjust our shape over time as we track. So what this does is this ends up giving you a little bit easier of a shape to track while we're using our tracking to drive the roto, and our animation over the top of that to change it. Now I'm going to switch back to auto key to make any corrections. So now when I start to make corrections, you know, we end up with this roto shape that makes sense. So let's show you our foreground shape here. You can see we have a keyframe here, here, and that's it. So about 7 keyframes to get this lovely roto shape out of the way. Now we had to do that before we tracked the background, because when I want to track the background, I want to actually track only a small section over here, because this is so washed out, there's not a lot of texture here, so we don't have much to track. So what I can do instead is take our little shape tool, we can start to track our background just like this. And what I can do is I can go to unlink to track, so link to track none, all right, and we can start to track this background just like this. And I can track translation, scale, and rotation only. The reason I'm only going to track translation, scale, and rotation only is because this is a pan, and there is no need to track shear or perspective, because shear, again, for those of you that don't remember, shear is a warp in X and Y, and then perspective is the addition of Z space to that warp. We don't need to track either one of those parameters because they're not present in the area we're trying to track. So let's go ahead and track translation, scale, rotation, shear, and perspective. Crank this value all the way up to 100, minimum percent of pixels used, because that's going to match the texture 100% over time in order to track the next keyframe. Okay, and then we're going to, because we've unlinked from track, we're going to turn our surface tool on. I'm going to move it all the way over here so that we can really see what our track looks like. And we're going to go ahead and hit track forwards, just like this. And what you'll see is that the shape stays still. So this is what we're tracking, and this is what the track is doing. And because it's underneath our foreground track, it doesn't matter that our edge is over here, because we're just holding this out from our track as we go. And then we'll end up with this beautiful track. I'm not going to make you sit through the whole track, but once we're done with our track, what we're going to do is we're going to take that Uber key again, and we're going to, here's our Uber key, here's our shape. We're going to make our shape the size of our object, and again, we're going to come over here. Actually, we're going to go back to link to track, and we're going to actually link our track to itself again. And now you can see that our shape actually goes off of the area that we want. That's okay. Still using our Uber key, we're going to pull our shape over, and now we have a shape that's the proper size for our background. So this is what that completed shape looks like, just like this. And that's going to be what our matte painting is going to look like. It's going to be the mega plate that we're going to make is going to be based on those dimensions. So here's our foreground, and there's our background. So now what we can do is we can create this based on our track. So let's zoom out so you can really see what it's doing. We're going to go to mega plates. I'm going to click on my background, and I'm going to say, hey, make me a mega plate based on this. So we're going to hit render, and again, auto step, because I want this to take as little time as possible, which means I'm going to tell Mocha to pick the best frames. I'm going to do auto scale because I trust Mocha to make the right size, but if I wanted it to be a specific size, I could do that too. And we're going to hit render. And what that will do is Mocha will think about creating this clean plate based on this track. And because this is a pan, we're going to get a really nice, lovely solve. If we had a lot of parallax, we would need to build two different plates. We would need to build this foreground plate here and a background plate if I were going to do anything to the front of these mountains as well. You can't get away really with a ton of perspective unless you track every single individual bit of perspective using this technique. And that's for obvious reasons, right? You know, it does what it does. All right, so we're going to let this process through, and it's going to take it a second. And did we have any questions while this is rendering? Because I want to make sure that I answer.
Can you hear me okay?
I sure can.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I was having some mic issues for a second. Yeah, no, I think this is an awesome example. To back up a couple steps, some people were asking, what would you do on a mega, for this kind of mega plate example? What would you do if the footage was very distorted, lens distorted?
I'd have to solve for the lens first.
Yeah, exactly. So there is a lens module in Mocha Pro. And so what you'd probably do is undistort your footage and then, run it right back through the mega plate module. So you have an undistorted mega plate.
Yep, exactly.
Let's see what else is.
If I want to remove this foreground too, and I do, I'm going to go ahead while we're talking. I'm just going to hit on the foreground layer, make sure the gear's on, and I'm going to hit render to remove that foreground layer. And I didn't want to interrupt you, but what were you going to ask next?
No, I think also just to make a point that, this is using GPU. So, I think you're on a laptop, right? So depending what, GPU card, you're going to get better performance. And obviously, this is something that will take advantage of a faster card.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on a several-year-old laptop at this point. Like I think it's about 3. Is it? I think it's 3. And it's an older NVIDIA card. And while it is a pretty beefy laptop, excuse me. Did I hit the wrong button? I must have. Remove foreground, please. Not create. It created a mega clean plate. I must have hit the wrong button. Let's go back to our mega plate for our selected layer. Actually, we'll just show you what it looks like when we're done. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the clean plate that we make, just really quickly. So here's our clean plate that we ended up making. I made it at, I want to say 115 or 110, which is right smack the middle of the shot is where I made my clean plate. And that's important because we're going to actually want to composite this clean plate back in. And rather than make you guys sit through that render again because I hit the wrong button, we're going to just go ahead and move on. I did paint this. I want you to notice something. Here's my original plate, and here's my painted clean plate. And the thing about this, and what's important here, is notice that I overpainted a little bit. That's a sanity check for me. That's a technique I do every single time I make a matte painting. You just want to give yourself a little bit of room, a little bit of wiggle room, to make sure if there's any distortion or if anything changes, that you have enough pixels to cover the area that you're painting. So what we did is we added in some new clouds. We added in some more detail here on the mountains, added the Hollywood sign, and a little bit of the city in here. And then I made sure that my mountains over here have a lot more detail. So again, here's our before and here's our after. Now, how do I get this into my shot? All right, so a couple of things. The first thing that I'm going to do is let's go back to our make a matte painting comp, and let's go to our project. And what we're going to do is we're going to launch Mocha, and I just want to show you one thing, and that is on the plate that I made my, let's go turn our surface tool on, click on our background here. Yeah, so on like 110, I use the align surface tool to take my surface tool and push it to all four corners of my comp. Now, here's the reason I did that is because we're going to use the power pin to actually get this matte painting back inside of Mocha. And there's a couple of ways to do this. I'm going to show you the After Effects way, and then I'm going to bump the nuke file over so that you can see what that looks like. Let's close this, and let's show you how to get this matte painting in here. So I'm just going to turn all of these off really quick. So here's my original. Let's take our matte painting. I've already imported it in, so let's take this one. So here's our matte painting from frame 110. Okay, looks lovely. What we're going to do is we're going to make this move throughout our shot, and you can see that it doesn't right now. So I'm going to go to layer, and I'm going to go to pre-compose, and what I'm going to do is, so you guys are used to me saying always move all attributes into the new composition. In this case, do not, okay? But we're going to pre-compose this, and we're going to call it new matte painting, okay? And we're going to leave all attributes in our make a matte painting layer. We're going to leave all the attributes there. It's going to only make an intermediate composition. It's not going to become the new source. So we're going to hit OK. All right. And now that's our new matte painting. Now we're going to come over here to our toggles, and we're going to make sure that we select this, which is collapse transformations. Now what this does is this allows you to take a really large file and have it collapse the transformations so that they don't alter when you add a transformation over the top, like a corner pin. Okay, it's how you keep a full res image full res instead of processing through the scaling. Okay. And getting basically aliased edges. So now we're going to call this new matte painting. Okay, so we've got our collapsed transforms. We're going to go to our original track layer where we've already aligned our surface on frame 110, and I made a little marker there so I always remember what frame this is from. And we're going to actually go to our create tracking data, which is right here. And we're going to say create tracking data from the background. Make sure that the gear is on the background. We hit OK. So that's our matte painting layer. All right, and now we're going to say export a CC power pin, okay, and we're going to export that to our new matte painting, and we're going to hit apply export, just like this. And now my matte painting moves according to my shot, and I can start to composite over the top of this. So in this case, we can put our people back on top. I can add some shapes to hide any other compositing sins. And now we have our lovely matte painting moving right behind our people. I just used apply Mocha mask to apply the mask here. I used darken to blend them back over the top, and then I used some creative Roto to sort of just comp them back in. I didn't want to do really articulated matting over them, so that's why I used darken instead. Now, we can even add a lens flare over the top using the Sapphire Auto Track lens flare. And now we have this beautiful matte painting, just like this, without having to do a whole lot of work. Now, but here's the cool thing about this. Because this is a pre-comp, I can come in here and I can just paint on this if I want to. So let's just take our paint tool and let's double click here. And I can, make a smiley face. Mocha. Okay, and so now when I go back to my my matte painting project, which is going to be right here. Let's just go ahead and, yep. So my paint is actually updated in my shot without having to do anything else. So that's really, really handy because you can actually use any tool to do that right inside of your comp. So let's just put the matte painting back in. And you can actually do this in Nuke too. And I just want to show you the Nuke workflow for this. It's a little bit different, okay? You want to have your read node, okay? And you want to have your mega plate right inside of your read node. You want to have your original footage that you built your comp from. And what you want to do is you want to take your original footage, do your Mocha tracking, okay? You want to take your corner pin. You want to export the corner pin for Nuke, which you can do really easily, just like this. So we're going to go into Mocha. Excuse me. There we go. Launch Mocha. And we're going to take our shot, take our background. We're going to go to export our tracking data. We want our corner pin for Nuke, copy to clipboard, and we can actually paste it right here onto our shot. Now I can I can just take this and copy and paste it to the mega plate, or I can move it. Now I've already done that. So here's our corner pin, but first what we want to do is we want to reformat our mega plate. We make our mega plate, okay, it's going to be the project size right here. And we want to make sure that we use the resize type is set to none, okay, and that's really important. Otherwise, it's not going to give us the proper nodes, okay. And so what we end up with is this. So let's go to, here we go, show you. So here's our original footage, and here's our corner pin clean plate over the top. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So it's the same sort of workflow. It's just different in Nuke in that you need to use nodes instead of layers, and you need to make sure that everything lines up by making sure that your corner pin is linked to your original footage, so that the corner pin is formatted to the right size, as opposed to the corner pin trying to reformat to the size of the original matte painting. So hope that makes sense. All right, so that is Mega Clean Plates. We're really excited about this. Like I said, I used to do a lot of matte paintings, and I find that this is really, really handy for that sort of rebuild. I want to talk really quickly because we're going to need to wrap up here. We also have one more thing I want to talk about, which is our OCIO support. So for those of you that don't know, we support OpenColorIO now in Mocha 2020. It's an open source color management, and it allows you, this is the breakdown for how to do it right inside of Mocha. And I'm just going to show you really quick. Let's take our OCIO compliance. You want to make sure that it's a 32-bit image, and we're going to launch Mocha. And then actually right here on the right-hand side of our screen, we have our color space. In this case, we're going to make this linear, and then we're going to change this to, see, Rec 709. And you can just switch between color spaces. And the nice thing about this is if you are working in a studio and you have to work all in the same color space, you can save your color profile to a central location, load it throughout Mocha, and then Mocha fits right into your color pipeline seamlessly, just like everything else. I'm going to let Ross jump in here with anything else, and we're going to start wrapping this webinar up.
No, I think that we've pretty much covered everything. A lot of excitement about the Mega Plate feature there. Definitely, some people were, before you'd even got to it, some people were asking about the workflow to get that data, back into After Effects. So those steps are definitely quite important that Mary showed. The pre-comp step, yeah, the power pin, the pre-comp, and the collapse transformations, all very important. That is documented in the Mocha Pro 2020 documentation that's on our website for those that actually read the manual. But it might be one of the things that you want to revisit if you didn't catch it in the example here. Yeah, no, I think that we've covered quite a lot. That's a great overview of Mocha Pro 2020. People have been asking about what it supports. It's available now. Unfortunately, we don't fully support Resolve, but we're trying to work with the Resolve team to get full support.
Yeah, boy, we're working on it.
Yeah, most of the modules are working, but it's some of them render a little slow, and we just don't think that the performance is there to give it our our seal of approval. So yeah. Other than that, let's see. Yeah, someone's asking right now, will it work in DaVinci? And yeah, we're saying most of the features work, but we do not officially support it. It is the OFX version that would work in Resolve or in Nuke or in Flame or in Fusion or HitFilm or Vegas.
Yes.
So
well,
yeah,
all right.
so thank you so much, Mary. Jesse, if you're there, I think you might have some prizes, right? Okay.
Yeah. Be Oprah.
Yes. All right, everyone. Thanks again for attending. Congratulations to Jonathan Lopez, who has won the 3-month subscription to Creative Cloud. Congratulations to Sandy Weber, who has won the 1-year Boris FX bundle. Congratulations to Robin Hunt, who has won the Mocha Pro 1-year subscription. Congratulations to Dmitry Golovin, who has won the 1-year Continuum subscription. And congratulations to Summer Keim, who has won the 1-year Sapphire subscription. You'll be receiving emails from me shortly.